Выражаю всем организаторам и участникам благодарность за возможность побывать на этой конференции. Прошу прощения, я не очень хорошо говорю по-русски, поэтому прочту доклад на английском. Relations between Serge Oldenburg and Poля Pelliot, two major figures of Orientalism, lasted for 3 decades, from 1904 to Oldenburg's death in 1934. Due to the general political situation of the early 20th century, we must distinguish two periods for those relations, one before 1914 and one after the First World War. At the end of the 19th century and up to the war, there was a great vitality in the international activities of scholars, particularly for the exploration of Central Asia. Specialists met everywhere: in Paris, London, Berlin, Hamburg, St. Petersburg, Algiers, and Hanoi. This sought to coordinate their projects, wrote to each other, and exchanged their publications. All this activity stopped abruptly at the beginning of the First World War. Orientalists could no longer communicate, could not meet or correspond anymore. They were no longer aware of the work of their colleagues and were unable to read each other's publications. Fortunately, because of the strong friendship based on mutual esteem that had been established before the war, French and Russian scholars were able to slowly link up again. This was due to men like Sylvain Lévy. And Pelliot. This new stage of relations did not really begin until 1925, when it was decided to strengthen ties thanks to an agreement on scientific cooperation. During that period, Oldenburg and Pelliot wrote many letters to each other and met at least on 7 different occasions. St. Petersburg was a key center of the study of the whole of Central Asia, this vast territory in which Pelliot made his major field of study from 1904 on. His appointment in Paris to the chair of Central Asia at the Collège de France only reinforced his interest in the work of Russian scholars. French sinologists had started to investigate the history of Central Asia in the 19th century, and Pelliot pursued this interest with the new tools of archaeology and philology, which Russian scholars had also used. The international, here is the International Association for the Historical, Archaeological, Linguistic, and Ethnological Exploration of Central Asia and the Far East had its headquarters in St. Petersburg. While getting his training in Central Asian studies, the young Pelliot was certainly stimulated by the works of Russian explorers and by the reports on their missions. For Pelliot, Russia became an important intellectual partner for the rest of his life. Pelliot had very cordial, one can even say very warm relations with many Russian researchers like Serge, Alexeyev, and of course Oldenburg. It is the relationship between Oldenburg and Pelliot that we're going to deal with today. Although Oldenburg had more affinity with Sylvain Lévy, who was an Indian like him and had exactly the same age, Pelliot and Oldenburg maintained close links and were very friendly exchanges. For the period before the First World War, very few of the letters they wrote to each other have survived. Pelliot, who has been appointed head of the French mission in Central Asia, spent some time in St. Petersburg and in Berlin to prepare this mission. He met Oldenburg in both cities. At the Memorial Symposium on Pola Pelliot in Paris in 2008, Dr. Irina Popova presented a paper entitled Pola Pelliot and his Russian correspondence, of which she generously sent me a copy. She reported that St. Petersburg's branch of the archives of the Russian Academy of Sciences retains 31 letters written by Pelliot to Oldenburg, the earliest being from 1906 to 1915, and later on from 1922 to 1922. Only 16 letters by Pelliot to Oldenburg and 3 letters by Oldenburg to Pelliot were published in 2002 in the volume of Correspondance orientaliste entre Paris et Saint-Pétersbourg. For my part, I have found 3 more unpublished letters, as well as some memorabilia kept in the Guimet Museum archives in Paris, and I will present them to you now. These 3 unpublished letters, all written by Oldenburg to Poля Pelliot, belong to 3 different periods of their lives. What is interesting about them is that they contain the answers to some of the letters that have already been published and provide additional information on the relations between the 2 scholars. From the first letter, dated January 28, 1905, we know that it relates to the first visit of Pelliot in St. Petersburg. Dear Sir, Oldenburg writes, I am sending you the volumes we found. I hear from the Geographical Society that the publications from the society of which we talked about will probably be at your disposal tomorrow. Will we still have the honor of having you among us here? If this is the case, please tell me until when, with 30,000 souls from S. Oldenburg. The exact date of Pelliot's first visit to Russia remains unclear. And this letter provides the information that places his departure as being at the end of January 1905. This also allows us to assign to the same period the undated note published in the Correspondance orientaliste that was written by Pelliot from the St. Petersburg train station. It is thus possible to determine Pelliot's stay in St. Petersburg as beginning sometimes in the autumn of 1904 and ending in January 1905. This seemingly unimportant detail allows us to reconstruct the stages of the preparation of the French mission to Central Asia. Since Pelliot was not officially appointed until August 1905, it was logically assumed that Pelliot only went to St. Petersburg after being nominated. But as this letter confirms, Pelliot had already learned Russian and began to prepare for his mission in St. Petersburg in 1904. He had probably been formally selected by the French Committee on Central Asia and was then introduced to Oldenburg. The young Pelliot was thus about 25 years old when he started studying Russian, which enabled him within a very short period of time to read Russian scientific publications and write reviews in scholarly journals. In St. Petersburg, he not only took advantage of meeting scholars, but he also spent time reading Chinese books in libraries, where he found historical information unavailable in Paris that allowed him to settle the route and define which sites were to be searched during the Central Asian expedition. From the letters, we know that his relations with the Russian people were excellent, and that Pelliot liked St. Petersburg. Believe me, he wrote to Oldenburg, that if one could stay in Russia just as one wished, I would not have left St. Petersburg so soon. But the benevolent reception that I have found will be one of the reasons that, on the first opportunity, will bring me back with pleasure to your country. Oldenburg surely helped the young French scholar prepare his trip to Central Asia. When in Berlin, Pelliot wrote him, I am keenly interested in a copy of Grünfeld's report, since corrections have been made, would there be any inconvenience in leaving it to me? We do not have Oldenburg's answer, but we know, for instance, that he did not hesitate to write several letters of introduction to officials at the Russian consulate in Kashgar. The last point I want to stress on the basis of this letter concerns a very important aspect of the relations between the French and Russian scientific communities, the exchange of publications. Pelliot came back to Paris with a heavy trunk loaded with books offered by the Russian Academy of Sciences. The list of 50 books was published in the Bulletin of the École de l'Extrême-Orient in 1905. The second letter is a brief note from Oldenburg to introduce Vladimir to Pelliot in April 1912. My dear Pelliot, may I very warmly recommend my young friend, Mr. Vladimir, a specialist in Mongol studies, who has been to Mongolia twice. I would appreciate if you could look after him a little in the scientific circles in Paris. I'm sure you will like him. We care for him very much. Truly yours, Oldenburg. And this is the card that was attached to the letter. Pelliot's answer to this letter has been published. These two letters mark the beginning of the relation between the two specialists of Mongol studies. Pelliot admired him as a scholar and also found him to be a pleasant man. Mr. Vladimir, he writes, knows a lot and has an excellent working method. He is moreover a nice fellow. Pelliot later wrote many reviews of Vladimir's writings in Bonn. The third letter I will show you today is dated January 12, 1923, only 2 weeks after Pelliot was named corresponding member of the Russian Academy of Sciences on December 29, 1922. The letter was written by Oldenburg, who at that time was the permanent secretary of the Russian Academy of Sciences. It is a long letter which covers many personal matters and scientific topics in random order. It clearly shows, as explicitly stated, that Oldenburg had so many things I want to talk over with you. My very dear friend, writes Oldenburg, we often talk about you here, and we read no less often your work. Concerning your Manichaean treatise, I always find something new every time I take it up in my hands, and I often do. Pelliot's answer shows the unceasing evolution of his ideas throughout his life and his mastery of different subjects. He writes, you tell me that you sometimes use the work Chaban and I published on Manichaeism. There would be much to add to it today, not only because of European publications. Manichaeism has almost become fashionable. The Cotton completes the publication of his miniature, etc. But here are all the documents in Petty and Manichaean subject that Müller keeps, I think, and especially many new Chinese texts of a historical nature. Finally, Stein has brought a substantial Chinese Manichaean manuscript, yet unpublished, from Toulon to London. Further on, Oldenburg mentions some point of disagreement between him and Pelliot. I think, for example, that we do not quite agree with the dates of the Toulon frescoes. A large part seems to date from the end of the Song Dynasty, or even later. Do not forget that my photographs are always at your disposal. Pelliot answers very straightforwardly. If you date a large number of Toulon frescoes to the end of the Song Dynasty or even later, I will certainly not agree with you. Oldenburg continues his letter by asking if Pelliot received specific Russian publications. Dr. Irina Popova reported that much of the correspondence between scholars dealt with mutual demands of books. It is always with great candor that Pelliot addressed Oldenburg to request more books. Speaking to Oldenburg about the Russian Academy of Sciences' generosity, Pelliot declares in 1913, there is no institution that runs more services, not only for its publications, but at least as much for the liberal use that it makes of them. But the war changed everything, and writing in 1923, Pelliot claims, I have not received anything published by the Academy since spring 1914. The beginning of the First World War brought an abrupt end to the exchange of publications, and the recovery was both slow and difficult. Oldenburg continues asking for news of his French colleagues. Where is Sylvain and his wife? Where is Fouché? And further, where is Finot? What are the younger scholars doing? Many letters, especially between Oldenburg and Sylvain, show the community of Russian and French Orientalists as a sort of family, where it seemed natural to ask for the latest news of every one of its members. No correspondence between Oldenburg and Pelliot is known between December 1915 and December 1921. At that time, Pelliot wrote again to Oldenburg. For nearly 4 years, it is in vain that I try to reconnect with our friends in Petrograd. And he adds, what we most often know of the Russian works published at the beginning of the war is by hearsay. In the same letter from January 1923, Oldenburg makes the first announcement concerning the preparation of the commemorative ceremonies of the Academy of Sciences scheduled for 1925. I cannot leave Petrograd for long, as we are preparing the bicentennial of the Academy. Will you come? In that letter, Oldenburg also takes the opportunity to inquire about the latest news in the field. For instance, he asks Pelliot, Chevalscoy has written me that you, Müller and Lecoq, are convinced that some Tibetan texts published in Al-Kushan are counterfeit. Is that true? Pelliot's answer is without ambiguity. The Tibetan texts in Al-Kushan are pure and simple fakes. Oldenburg also tackles a subject close to his heart, one on which he expressed his admiration for Pelliot's scientific method, as written in 1910. I followed part of the same route as you, and enjoyed your work. It is a pity that not all travelers have the same respect for antiques as you, and that everything has been damaged. In the letter of 1923 that we see here, Oldenburg writes, what are we to think of the inscriptions for which we do not have any photographs? And generally speaking, it was likewise fatal for Kizil, where everything was lost forever for lack of understanding on how to detach frescoes. Do you not think it would be necessary to specify where and how the various sites of Serindia have been explored? I would like so much to talk about it in a small group and take some action to save what can be saved. Both scholars share the same respect for the archaeological sites they visited. The stationery proved to be too small to contain all of what Oldenburg had to say to Pelliot. The text overflows to the side of the paper where it adds a few words, ending with my old friendship through yours. It is true that over the years, and especially after the ordeal of the war, when Russian and French people were fighting for a common cause, the tone of the letters became extremely friendly. At the early stage of their correspondence, they started with their letters with "Dear Sir," and gradually moved to "My dear friend," and later to "Your old friendship." As if wanting to linger a while longer, Oldenburg did not hesitate to turn the first page of the same letter upside down, and found a tiny spot where he added again a few more words. Write me your wishes for our occupations. I'm sending you some books and a second copy of Lenin's work that has not reached you before. The answer to this long letter by Oldenburg is an equally long letter by Pelliot, which has been published in Correspondance des Orientalistes. According to the editors, Pelliot's answer was written at the end of 1922 or at the beginning of the following year. After reading the January 12 letter by Oldenburg, Pelliot's letter can obviously be assigned to the second half of January 1923 or shortly thereafter. The various expeditions that crossed Micronesia had each brought their share of treasures that was scrutinized by all the other explorers. For example, writing Oldenburg on September 1st, 1910, Pelliot said, "I am anxious to know what you have brought back." But despite the real feelings of friendship and respect, there was a spirit of competition among scholars from different countries, working in the same field and in the same geographical areas. The Russian scientific community was eager to examine the new findings coming from foreign colleagues, but Pelliot kept the manuscripts for himself and other French specialists. A letter from Serge in 1910 confirms this position. "When I was in Paris, I wrote you that our French colleagues will not give anyone their regular material because they want to investigate it on their own." Scholars did, however, sometimes briefly show their findings to each other and more willingly exchange information. Pelliot reported that in 1910, thanks to the great kindness of our colleagues, Mr. Oldenburg and Salman, I managed to handle for a few hours most of the Chinese documents brought back by General Kozlov that are kept in the Asiatic Museum. As he did on many occasions for the Russian books he reviewed, Pelliot published the notes of this visit in the Journal Asiatique. For its second expedition in 1914, Oldenburg aimed to visit Dunhuang and prepared his trip on the basis of the results of the Pelliot expedition. He arrived in Dunhuang on August 20, 1914, and his mission was not completed until January 26, 1915, when the war had already begun in Europe. Pelliot was drafted and could neither follow nor have access to the result of Oldenburg's mission for many years. He only became fully aware of its importance in 1932, as he wrote to him, "I was very happy to see you again, although too briefly, during the recent short stay I made in Leningrad. Even I, who am one of the best informed persons of studies, did not suspect the importance of your findings." What justified Oldenburg's late mission to a site already explored by Orenstin and Pelliot was his careful preparatory work based on the Pelliot exploration, as stated by Menshikov. In methodology of his activities, Oldenburg most closely resembled that of Pelliot, as they were acquainted with each other. No sooner had Pelliot finished his exploratory work with his first batch of material, not yet published, that Oldenburg became aware of the results of the Frenchman's exploration. All this explains why Oldenburg regarded his work as the continuation of Pelliot's efforts, and why he adopted Pelliot's numbering of the grottos. Oldenburg kept careful record and took photographs that filled in some of the unfinished portions of Pelliot's survey. It is touching to recall the circumstances that sealed the new rapprochement between French and Russian intellectuals. It happened during the commemoration of the 200 years of the founding of the Russian Academy of Sciences, which took place in 1925 at the Academy in St. Petersburg and later in Moscow. Here are some objects that Pelliot kept after his visit. We see the official invitations, written both in Russian and French, for the ceremonies of the bicentenary of the Academy. Pelliot marks with a small red cross the location of the library of the Asiatic Museum. He even kept his transportation pass in Leningrad. It is quite remarkable to see that the program of the bicentennial celebrations was printed in French. The ceremonies took place in St. Petersburg from September 3 to September 10. Pelliot also kept an invitation to the September 6th banquet. And the menu, probably delicious. The inauguration of the new premises of the library was scheduled for Wednesday, September 9, as shown at the bottom of the page. as well as an exhibition of the publications of the Academy. From our point of view, the most important effect of this celebration was to once again strengthen the ties between French and Russian Orientalist circles. The French Scientific Committee on Relations with Russia was set up by the French guests after their return to Paris. In November 1925, Sylvain Lévy called for a public meeting at the École Pratique des Hautes-Études for the creation of the French Committee. Around 30 French university professors, including Pelliot, participated at the meeting. A year later, the association had 150 members and Pelliot was its vice president. The committee was particularly active from 1925 to 1928 and promoted the exchange of scholars and scientists. Oldenburg, as well as two other scholars, were able to travel to France in 1929. In 1932, it was Pelliot's turn to go to Leningrad. Russia had a very special place in Pelliot's heart. He learned Russian very early, and from 1920, he probably practiced the language daily at home because his wife was Russian. He had married in Vladivostok on October 9, 1918 to Maria, also called Marianne Skupianskaya, who had been previously married to Boris Lavrov. Marianne Pelliot's mother lived in Petrograd. Pelliot could also count on Oldenburg's support in times of hardship. Upon his return from his Central Asian expedition, Pelliot was the victim of a fierce controversy and was even sued. He received Oldenburg's full support. Pelliot was very grateful for the help of this prominent Russian scholar. Thank you so much, dear sir and friend, for your telegram. Not knowing the Russian language was not in itself an obstacle to the relations between French and Russian Orientalists, since most of them could read, write, and speak French. Oldenburg wrote French remarkably well, and probably spoke it quite fluently, as can be judged in his correspondence. Sylvain Lévy repeatedly wrote that he didn't speak nor read Russian, but this didn't interfere in his dealings with Oldenburg. It was, however, an obstacle to the direct access of Russian scientific publications. Pelliot was the only French Orientalist of his generation to have mastered the language, and that allowed him to read the works of his Russian colleagues in the original. He followed as much as possible their publications and wrote many reviews. In the January 1903 letter we saw earlier, Oldenburg acknowledges Pelliot's contribution. For so many years, you have drawn from oblivion many Russian works. We know you as a trusted friend. I am glad that you are now more closely linked to our academy. Russia occupied both Pelliot's heart and mind. The country had forever a special place in his scholarly and personal life. At the time, he was probably the most pro-Russian of the French Orientalists, as evidenced by his correspondence with Oldenburg and much of his work. Спасибо за внимание.